Hello, welcome to Psychopath in Your Life. I'm your host, Dianne Emerson, and I'm the author of the book Psychopaths in Our Lives, My Interviews. And this is episode number 71. I'd like to have a little bit of a computer or technical update here, and please don't fall into shock because I did get some information wrong. As far as the links and contact and all of that, I guess on iTunes you have to push the details at the bottom of the podcast or whatever, and it shows up on the other ones. But the bottom line is that if you choose to email me and want to do so privately, there's that box there. And if you want me to respond to you, I do need you to give me permission to either respond to you personally or on the air if you don't feel you're in a safe position to receive emails. And that way you can do it without having to give up your email. So I'm sorry for that bit of confusion there. But there are a couple of things. Well, today I'm going to talk about the subject, which it's been on my mind. It's probably the biggest thing on my mind all the time. And the question is, are you safe? And it's a pretty broad question, so I think it's going to take me a while to get through this. Because remember that everybody has different levels of safety. And everybody can also be deluded into thinking they're safe when clearly they may be in a position that isn't so safe. So what I'd like to do to open up the conversation is talk about, I don't know that any of us are safe. And remember, I'm not sharing a roof with a psychopath, and I don't feel safe. I think that in a lot of ways, we have so much further to go with this conversation that it kind of makes me feel wondering if I'll get to it in my lifetime. And here's the thing, is that as far as psychopaths and us, we clearly have them in the numbers game. Okay, there's more of us than there are them. But we really don't know how many more. Statistics will tell you 1% to 3%. Well, I can tell you that that's got to be way too low. I mean, just think about it, okay? If that number was 20 or 25% of prison inmates are psychopaths, and then the ones who haven't gotten caught have got to be a lot higher than 1% to 3%. So let's move up the premise a little bit that, yes, they are. We do have them outnumbered as people with conscience, but they have us on the run in a lot of different ways. And what I'd like to talk about is this. First, I'd like to talk about globally why we're really not safe, okay? And I don't feel safe because when I look around and I see what's going on, I see the gaslighting that's taking place in the news. I see this political divide. We've got people, we're pretty much become the ruling party of the 1%. And yeah, I look around, I get very concerned. And I have made the statement previously that I honestly do feel that I'll be glad that I'll be dead when this stuff really blows the lid off. And people have looked at me like that was some sort of a punchline to a joke. And no, I'm not joking. I'm serious when I say that. So here we've got a situation that we clearly outnumber them, but in the amount of evil that's going on in the world, and remember, this is only my personal opinion, okay? I think they've got us on the run. And what I'd like to do is, and remember, I'm not calling anybody a psychopath here. What I am saying is there sure is a lot of bad psychopathic type behavior going on around us. And I think in many ways, until we can advance this conversation and get it out more into the mainstream with the idea that no, most of these psychopaths running around and ruining people's lives are not going to fit the profile of a Ted Bundy. They're always going to be the ones that they say, well, he had no criminal past. Well, okay, but maybe in that person's past, before they did their first murder or whatever, maybe they trashed a whole lot of lives. I mean, we only look at it based on the conviction rate. And in many ways throughout society, we have, in fact, allowed them, and I'm talking about my generation, so I'm not like proudly sitting here saying this, we have allowed the inmates to run the asylum. And what I mean by that is when it comes to the conversation is, are we safe from psychopaths? I think that in general, as a society, I don't even think we're bringing a knife to a gunfight. I think we're bringing a covered dish. And here's why I say that. Because we have lost sight of so much that we have let the psychopaths develop the rules and stuff, which we all must now abide by. And what do you say about that? Well, let me pull out a couple of examples. And to be very, very clear, I'm not calling them psychopaths, but I am saying that there's something very wrong with the system. If you've ever watched, there's a great show if you want to get beyond the personal level, because there are people who listen to the podcast who are stuck in work relationships with psychopaths. If you want to kind of dig in a little further and you say, well, really, Diane, I'm not here to dig in a little further. I'm just here about my problem. But, let me advise you this way. And this is based on what I've seen happen over the years, is that, what do they call that? Recovery. Oh, I'm going to get it. Relapse is part of recovery. Okay. So it's highly likely that if I've communicated with you in the past and I haven't heard back from you, it's highly likely that you may be back with that psychopath. It's highly likely that other things have changed in your life. There's a lot of things out there that I will never know about unless you choose to correspond with me again. But here's the thing. We always assume that because somebody appears to be better, brighter, smarter, more money than us, that we have this obsession with the outward appearance of people. So we're talking about the kind of psychopaths who put on a great outward appearance. So where does this all lead us down this path? Well, because when you resolve your issue that you're maybe here listening about, please don't just stop at that point, because my goal here is to try to give you the tools to look outside your own one-on-one relationship in a more of a global sense. And for you millennials out there, you've been left a pretty big mess. And so it's going to be about changing the rules, because the rules have shifted to the psychopathic behaviors benefit. Okay, let me call out just two here. Two of them that come to mind, first of all, are everybody's favorite two, Amazon and Apple. Now, to be very clear, not calling them a psychopath, just saying they have rather psychopathic behaviors. Okay, so with Apple, the beloved Apple, they get caught manufacturing in China with horrific conditions, documented conditions, horrific conditions. How long did we focus on that? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was in the news for a couple of days. We've developed this manic gaslighting process. So, well, then we salute them when they're at the top of the chain. I think they made more in stocks than any company alive. Well, it's a pretty dirty, ugly picture, okay? I mean, this is a company charging $1,000 with a phone that doesn't quite get the battery straight, and everybody thinks all this is okay, and they've done studies, and people are still willing to pay them the price of using child labor. And then the other issue is that because of our lack of, because the psychopaths and the people in power have rewritten all the rules, they can legally not pay any corporate U.S. taxes. They just stash their money offshore. So they're here using our roads or using our police or all of our services, but yet we allow them to not pay us any taxes because they're big, they're bright, and they're rich, okay? Then you've got everybody's best friend, Amazon. Amazon has now shifted to so fast that over half of the people in the U.S. have Amazon Prime, that free shipping thing. Well, here's the deal with that. The owner of Amazon has more money than anybody in the world, okay? And there was I'll just point out a couple things about them because this isn't a riff on corporate greed and psychopathic behavior. There was a recent case in Seattle that the city council, gentrification has had a huge impact on the poor. And what that means is, like, let's just pick Seattle. Because of gentrification, because of the growth of Amazon and Microsoft and the people in that area, the poor no longer have a place to live. So remember, you do need these worker people to come in and run your restaurants and stuff. So we kind of lose sight of that. But anyway, so back to them. So the city was trying to raise taxes by, I don't know, it wasn't much, okay? Remember, this is the richest person in the world, by just a couple points or something. And Amazon fought it to the ground and wrestled it out of their hands. All they wanted to do was have these corporations pay just a little bit more so that people who actually were their service people would have a decent place to live within a proximity of the city, because gentrification has pretty much run them out. Well, Amazon sure made good use of that. They walloped that out, so that thing got taken off the menu. See how we continue to let these people in power dominate and control us. and they're exhibiting some pretty scary behaviors. So then we've got, if you want to watch some shows, watch American Greed. And then there's also a show on Netflix called Dirty Money. These are not stories about things that happened a million years ago. These are stories that are happening now. Because one would think, remember that guy, what was his name? The big Ponzi scheme guy that everybody knows. He's actually in prison now. Madoff. Yeah, Bernie Madoff. Yeah, everybody, when Bernie Madoff got caught, he didn't get caught until he blew through a bunch of people's money and wasn't in a position to get it back because it was, in fact, a Ponzi scheme. But, he, being a white male in our society, and this is my speculation, I think the reason that he's in prison now is because he ripped off a lot of celebrities and other people with power. Just my guess, just saying, because if you compare that, just this week, there were 2 pharmacists. There had been this case, and they do these medical compound things, meaning that, like, for example, they come up with some ingredients that will help your back, let's say in this case. So they rely on these companies, which are pretty much not supervised, and so these 2 pharmacists, they run this company, and they have this compound stuff that people were getting injected in their backs with. Well, people started dying. And then they traced it, and the people that are alive, I'm sure probably wish they died because their health is so bad. But anyway, so they traced this compound back to this facility run by these 2 pharmacists. Now, keep in mind that there was mold and stuff. I mean, it was horrendous. I mean, I don't know how this stuff didn't kill everybody. But anyway, so the bottom line is these 2 guys, clearly they're breaking the law. I mean, they're not in compliance with anything. People are dying. People are left in crippling positions. I think one of them got 6 years and one of them got 7 years. So we have a very skewed system. So, for example, then this week, there was a doctor in Houston, somewhere in Texas, but anyway, a patient was in the hospital sedated, a woman, and he actually raped her while she was there in the hospital. What happened to him? Slap on the wrist. I think he got probation. He did lose his medical license, which he should have, but he didn't serve any time. And then you got those 2 pharmacists. They get it pretty easily. Because what you'll find is that these psychopaths running these businesses are going for the ones with the least punishment. They do say that like 10% of designer goods in the marketplace are fakes. People think, oh, I'm not hurting anybody. I got a deal on this fake purse. Well, yes, you are hurting a lot of people because the reason psychopaths get into doing fakes and selling fakes is because the prison sentence is less. So they can make more money stealing and manufacturing fake designs than they can if they're selling drugs. So see how it all starts to work out? It all kind of finds its road back to some sort of psychopath in charge, and it all has this thing wrapped around money. So money is what seems to drive this thing. We admire money so much that we won't challenge people at the top, like the city council in Seattle. Why'd they roll over for Jeff Bezos at Amazon? Because he's a big guy with a lot, not he's a small guy in my mind, but anyway, with a lot of money and a lot of legal help. So as long as we keep ascending to these people in these powerful positions, it's always going to be that way. But we really can't make any changes until we start to have some sort of close up all these loopholes. So here's the other thing I was thinking about. So I was thinking about, are you safe? And I thought, a lot of us aren't safe. I mean, this week, and I'm not going to go through every case in the world, because frankly, I don't get cable anymore, and I no longer will watch any kind of political show or crime show. I give myself up to a couple of hours before I plan on going to sleep because I want that stuff out of my mind, because it just gets to be too much after a while. So let me just talk about last week and as far as the rest of us being safe, okay? They just broke up a huge Catholic priest pedophile ring, which was so disgusting in itself that it's really hard to kind of take a look at it and think, oh, well, see, here again, trust. We put our trust in people. I mean, that case was so revolting. I only read as much of these cases as I need to kind of get an idea of them, because really it's, well, it's the trust thing, and it's the money thing. The Catholic Church is a very powerful organization. So anyhow, so the most just, I mean, it was all just horrific to read, okay, how they groomed these kids, even down to the point of the kids that they had molested that would be easier targets. They gave them a special gold cross so the other priests could recognize them. So what's with that? Well, trust and money. People believe they could send their trust. So the way the psychos have gotten one step ahead of us is they have a law in place that you can only report these things for so long. So clearly we need some broader reporting structures, because otherwise it's like we're catching and releasing criminals as fast as we can, because we don't have any kind of handle on why it's important to punish people who are bad actors. So we seem to have lost a grip on, if you've got lots of money and you live in a big house, you're good. If you don't, you're not. And so we have this illusionary behavior of how we see these people. So anyway, so this is just this week, we got these disgusting priest pedophiles running loose. And then there was a case of a woman, and well, then we have, of course, Kathleen Peterson. She wasn't safe. But who, when you're being tricked into believing this person actually loved you, who really makes a leap that this could end up in murder when I decide to leave them? And remember, when you've had a lot of years of PTSD, you're not exactly thinking as clearly. So it is possible to keep yourself in a situation where you're not feeling very safe, but maybe you're not feeling not safe, but you should be. So all around us, we see these people and these things. And then there was another case, and I found her note here. Let me grab it. Because I found this just so shocking. Shannon Watts was the one this week, and her husband, Chris Watts, evidently, I mean, he's admitted, so I don't have to use the word alleged. Evidently, he murdered her, wonderful young woman, and their 2 young children, and she was also pregnant. So here's the thing that caught my attention the most, was that everybody's always shocked when these things happen. And even one of the psychopaths that I interviewed said, "Why are you guys so surprised?" I mean, it's not like we're going to be anything but evil. Okay, so poor Shannon and her children, Chris, they gone through a bankruptcy and some different things, but that's neither here nor there. They were young, things happen. But she did put on an interesting presentation over social media, because I don't believe all of a sudden one day Chris became evil and angry. I believe she was probably working against the tide to believe what needed to be believed. And now that she's pregnant again, I mean, people want to stay in the relationship for the children's sake. And there's a tendency to then overlook your own safety. So anyway, so he's confessed, and she made a comment about, somebody said she always tried to project a positive energy, and she made a comment. And what did I do with it? Oh, okay. This is a good one. Now, I don't know if it's me reading into it or what. And what she had said on social media, "I couldn't imagine a better man for us. You spoil us with love and attention. You put up with 3 impatient, demanding women in the house," she wrote on Instagram in April. "I love you so much and so grateful you hung around when I tried pushing you away in the beginning." Now, probably this is me reading too much into this. Probably not. I don't know. You say. You tell me. So anyhow, so the thing is that we all need to not only, I believe strongly that if you say something, if you see something, say something, and if you're safe, then do something. But not until you're safe. And that's the whole catch. So what I'm going to do is wrap up today. And then next week, I want to address more you personally as far as how to keep yourself safe and have you start to think. And like I said, if you really want to think, turn off the radio, turn off the electronics, just go for a drive and see what that voice is telling you. I'm only really here to kind of tell you what you're already thinking. That's pretty much my role in this whole thing. So Anyway, so next week we'll get more into this safety thing. And if you're wondering, well, why didn't you talk about this in the beginning? Well, I didn't want to because if you felt like I was behaving in an alarmist kind of way, you might have just buried your head and run back. But I needed for people to understand who they're dealing with first, because this isn't the podcast for lousy relationships. It's a very specific one. It's one for the psychopath you might have in your life, either through work or your own personal life. So we're trying to cover both of them. And so next week, let's get talking more about you and your personal safety. So as I said, the donate button, the contact me buttons are all down below. You should be all set. I do look forward to hearing from you. And unless I have permission, I will not answer you back or acknowledge you on the show. But if I do have your permission, a lot of times your examples will give me things that I can talk about. So be safe out there. And until next week, goodbye for now.